Damn, Perk did this?
I don't need no one to save me. I was born to be the greatest. All that time in that basement, all that time isn't wasted. Rapping getting faded. I just wanna tell my mom that I made it. Just wanna be the topic of the conversation. Used to rock the gold plated. Now I'm wearing gold chains like I'm famous.
As you can see the title, should brothers, passport bros, should they remain in the United States? And I kind of wanted to get your thought process on what do you think about the passport bros in general. Yeah, we'll start there. What do you think about the passport bros in general?
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting movement, man. I'll say that. So from what I've like watched, it just seems like a lot of passport bros are the type of people that have kind of like given up on American like modern day society woman, and they think that traveling overseas is gonna get them over the hump. I guess that's a good way to put it. And look, I get it, right? If you and I love traveling, don't get me wrong, but I just think if you are traveling for the primary purpose to like increase your dating life and you're going to spend, thousands of dollars like every month just going overseas just to better off your dating life, it's like you have to really I think you'd have to just sit back and assess where you are in your life. It's like, is the investment really worth it? And I guess, and for me, it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, you go like back and forth like every month, spending thousands of dollars dating women overseas. It's like, realistically, like, is that relationship really going to last? I mean, how do you expect? I think a lot of like strong like relationships, they're built through like quality time. And if you're dating someone overseas, like, I just know, I mean, obviously you could use Skype, you could, I don't know, Zoom them or whatever, but I really think like the more face-to-face interaction is crucial. And how would you really do that if you're going like overseas? The best way is you go to them. And when you do that, it's like thousands of dollars every month for that. It's like, is your dating life really that bad in the US where you can't like attract women here like at all? There's 50 states in the US. There's tons of cities within each state. It's like you really have to kind of ask yourself, have you really maximized your dating life in the US? Guys that hop on this movement, I feel like a lot of them are like kind of in their mid to early 20s as well. And it's kind of like, I really think at that time period in a man's life, and maybe this is just the red pill talking in me, but I really think you shouldn't focus on your dating life really until you get to those later stages in your late 20s to early 30s. Because at that point, you have maximized a lot of things in your career and finances. I'm a huge supporter of the male advantage. I really think males don't really peak until they're like 34 to 37, around that time period. I really think guys that want to get into serious relationships, they need to focus on the serious relationship later on in their life when they're in like their early 30s to their mid 30s. And if you're, dishing out like thousands of dollars when you're like in your 20s going like overseas, it's just like, it just doesn't seem realistic. I don't think it's the best idea. And again, I'll say this: if you are at the male advantage, if you are like in your 30s and you are you're great career wise, you've maximized all elements of your life, you're great, financially, you're in a great place, your career is settled, and you've really traveled to a good amount of like cities in the US, whatever's happening, you just can't get your dating life figured out. And at that point, if you want to move overseas, not go back and forth from US to like Brazil or anything like that, but if you legitimately at that point, explored all your options, you're older now, you're in your prime, in your like mid 30s. At that point, if you want to go overseas, settle down with a girl, hey man, like I have nothing to say, like all to you. I'm not against that. What I'm kind of against is like, or not against, that's a strong word, but what I don't understand is why, like, it just seems like a lot of guys are just kind of like giving up. And, maybe that's just the red pill of me saying, I don't like chasing women. I don't like just chasing them and going overseas to like get this extra boost in my dating life. Until I know that I have maximized everything and I am in my male advantage peak, It's like, why would I go overseas, spend thousands of dollars every month, dating women for relationships that realistically, they're not going to last. I mean, unless you're like constantly, going every week, right? We all know connections are built better face to face. But again, I didn't mean to like, come down hard on any passport bros. I actually, like I said, I really support traveling, right? I saw like one of your podcasts, there was a gentleman that talked about like the Blue Book gentleman that travels for, experiencing like the culture, the environment, the food, maybe, and yeah, like girls, it's cool. Like, I'm not saying don't party with girls, don't hang out with girls when you go overseas. I'm all for it. But I say I'm more of a stronger supporter of like the Blue Book gentlemen that, kind of go towards actually experiencing the country and what it has to offer. And that's what I really have always liked about traveling, man. You're like in this new country, like you get sick of America. That's why I've never had anything against traveling. But what really kind of just, I guess I'm in the minority with when it comes to like the passport movement. It's like, why are you dishing out thousands of dollars like every month or every couple of months to go overseas and just go back and forth to meet women when, there's 50 states in the US, there's over 50 million, 60 million, 70 million, over that number of amazing girls. You can say modern day feminism and yeah, it sucks, right? But instead of, complaining about it, you have to kind of embrace it and you just got to maximize, the best you can. You could go to other cities within the US. You don't have to go overseas. But again, man, I don't mean to ramble on. I have a lot of stuff to say, but on Passport Bros. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's always like the best thing to do, I guess, for a guy, especially a guy who's kind of in that young adult, mid-adult stage, which is really what like my channel's kind of tailored to. It's more so like helping just young adults kind of navigate the world. So that's kind of a little bit of stuff I have on that movement, man. One of the popular topics in the manosphere these days is the Passport Bros movement. Your dating life in the US is apparently so bad that you have to fly all the way to another country to work on your dating life. And look, these guys have a point. You're a foreigner, you're going to another country. People will be interested. Girls will be more interested in you, especially since you don't have, their accent. They'll probably ask you more questions. They'll be more receptive. Heck, they might even be a little more friendlier. But is that little, just tiny bit of boost really worth the investment or dishing out thousands of dollars every month, every couple months to just go fly abroad when you can just meet girls in your home city? That's what I just don't get. I just feel like this is some type of cope or some type of coping mechanism for just like people who can't attract girls in their home city. They have to now go fly abroad. I mean, ask yourself, how stupid that sounds? I mean, seriously, guys. And not only that, and don't get me wrong, I'm all about traveling. I've traveled to a ton of places, South Asia, Australia, the Middle East, Europe.
All right. So I'll stop right there. Right. So, all right. So you mentioned like you think that it's kind of like a coping mechanism, where like some of the guys are unable to find women like in like their local cities or a woman in the United States. So the pushback, well, the feedback that I have received from from guys who travel, what they say basically is like it's a needle in a haystack full of needles. So not to say that there aren't any quality women in the States, but it's just that it's such a challenge to where abroad these women these women are more accessible, where it's like, now no matter where you are in the world, I'm always for vetting a woman. Doesn't matter where you are in the world. That's me personally. What I will say though is that the feedback that I have gotten is that there are more opportunities to meet quality women, and women in the West seem to either be like combative or they kind of play games, and so those are like, two of the main things that I really hear.